Today, I want to share with you something very important. Before that I could start, let me read you a good phrase. The good phrase says, I don't feel proprietarial about the problems of philosophy. History has taught us that many philosophical issues can grow up, live home, and live elsewhere. I put here this good phrase because it shows us the reality of life. You can observe many issues only if you go outside. When I was a child, my questions were simple. Something like, why is the sky blue? Or what happens when we grow up? But as I enter in a world on the brink of collapse, those innocent curiosities changed my mindset. When I was a teenager, I used to think if all my questions about my future would disappear once I become an adult. But right now, I'm 28 years old, and I realize that the same questions that I had in the past are the same questions that young people are still wondering about. That's why I can say the Metacrisis is a huge topic. In a world full of doubts and rapid changes, it's natural for us to ask questions. Of course, we don't always know if they have answers. With all the problems around us, like the climate crisis, global issues, political instability, and so on, we are led to a meta-crisis, asking philosophical questions like, is it right to have children in this time? What does it mean to be happy? Or what career should I choose? Hi everyone, my name is Angelali Ann, and today I want to talk about some common questions that young people tend to ask themselves. First, I will talk about the question, what is the purpose of life in a world full of inequality and suffering? Then, I will show you an example about the question, is inequality relative during a crisis? And finally, I will give you my personal perspective about the question, is it right to have children in this time? So, let's start. Question number 1. What is the purpose of life in a country full of inequality and suffering? I consider we question the meaning when we say that our reality is shaped by problems like poverty, violence, and injustice. For example, in a place where economic social inequality is clear, the purpose of life might seem confusing and out of reach. However, for some of us, the purpose is to fight for a change towards more just and more equal society. I have seen that probably our purpose of life is not to accept the current situation. We can use our energy and vision to change the system that continues to damage our society. Question number 2. Is inequality relative during a crisis? This is another question I reflect on, especially in times of conflict and ethical dilemmas. I wonder myself if moral principles are universal or if they can change based on the situation. One example will be an ethical dilemma during a health crisis like the pandemic. You can imagine a young doctor working in a overwhelming situation where he must decide who gets a respirator, even knowing there aren't enough for everyone. So, absolute moral principles would suggest that all the patients have the same right to treatment, no matter their age or their condition. The reality of this crisis forces us to make difficult decisions, such as prioritizing those with the best possible choices. And finally, question number 3. Is it right to have children in this time? I was watching the news yesterday, and I realized that one of the biggest factors is the climate crisis. It scares me to think that we've had floods in recent places like Escuintla. I could see how many families lost the little things that they have built due to the climate crisis. I've also seen how many children are being abandoned while others are dying from bad nutrition or illnesses caused by pandemics. Having a child in this world is so hard because the cost of fruits or some vegetables, gasoline also, or some things that we use every day are increasing. For that reason, I don't want to have children in these times because when I was 22 years old, I had my first baby. I saw him die due to a lack of resources inside the Amaticans hospital, as well as a lack of knowledge from some doctors. It was painful to see how nurses don't feel empathy for the pain of others. Honestly, I don't want to have children in these times because they are no longer like the old days. Before you make a decision on bringing a child in this world, you have to acknowledge that some problems as a lack of medicine inside the hospitals, food, education, or job opportunities are being hard to find. It's time to start taking an action instead of just talk and giving the world an expected turn that will benefit our future generations. Thank you.